There we go. I was like, why is it not loading? Okay, we're ready. It was stuck.
We're good?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Awesome. This will be pretty low key. So what I'm thinking is we'll split the 2 episodes or split the 2 podcasts. So I'm thinking for Maxed Out Man, which we'll start with, we'll talk about those things, right? Like finances, faith, family, fitness, all those things that you're into, because I think that's super, like, that's inspiring and educational and all that. Talk about the importance of personal finance, business finance, because most of our target is business people, businessmen that are basically in your situation, right? You're a little bit younger than our demographic, but I think it'd be great information. Then the cruise control one, which is basically an automotive business kind of thing, that one's primarily just we can just talk about business finances and how to best attract, how to best go through that. Not giving out all the proprietary information, but we may be able to pick up a couple of clients for you. That'd be nice. So
I'm not worried about it. If we do, we do. If not, then God's still good. So,
well, because a lot of those guys that listen to that are like, either small, medium, and some of them are large businesses that are doing a couple $1 million a year. But for the most part, like me, they don't, and like most small businesses, suck at doing all the stuff that you do, which is why you need to do the stuff you do, right? And I'm gonna do so. Like we'll finish up the first one, and then we'll end it, and then I'll do a set/wardrobe change, which will take me about a minute, and then we'll go again.
hey, this is your time. Whatever you want me to do, I'm here.
Cool. Well, whenever you're ready, I'll do a quick intro, and then we'll get going.
All right, let's do it.
Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Maxed Out Man podcast. Today I'm here with Cameron Williams, and I'm super excited to have him here. Before we get started, don't forget to go to maxedoutman.com. Find us on all the social medias. We do coaching, consulting, all sorts of courses, memberships, and we offer a little bit of stuff on the side that you can buy. Hey, Cameron is the founder of CEO of KynLi Consulting, a consulting group that specializes in CFO services and consulting, including outsourced CFO and accounting services, allowing businesses to focus on running your business, which I said before we got started with Cameron. The reason we need him is because most of us, including myself, full disclosure, suck at this. So I'm super excited to have him here on Maxed Out Man. We'll talk business, faith, family, fitness. He's a fitness guy too. He's a don't skip arms day instead of a don't skip legs day. I'm always encouraged to see him doing his deadlifts and squats and all that kind of stuff that I hate doing. And if you could see my legs right now, you would realize that why I hate doing them. Because it doesn't matter how much I do them, I still have skinny legs. So it's just one of those things. But hey, Cameron, that was a long intro. Thanks for coming on board. I appreciate you being here.
What's going on? Thank you so much for having me. Let's jump into it.
Yeah. So, give me a little bit more of your backstory. That's kind of your, quick LinkedIn one. I'm interested in know how you got here. Give me some background on your family and some of those aspects of like, because we're friends on Facebook as well, so I can kind of see how dedicated you are to the things that we teach, right? The family, fitness, obviously finances is a big one. But the things I pick up on most are family and fitness, right? Like, and you're a man of faith also, which is super important to me too. So fill us in on some of that stuff.
Okay. You said, how did we get here in 2024? Ooh. Okay. So Cameron Williams, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm a city kid. Went to school here locally. Then for college, wanted to get as far away as I could, but still keep the Hope Scholarship. So I went to the very, very, very bottom of Georgia, like 10 minutes from the Florida line, to this little school called Valdosta State. They were Division II national champs in 2007 for football. So I was like, I'm going. So we went there, graduated in 3.5 years. You can see, if you're looking at this visually, some of the degrees behind me. I've got my bachelor's in accounting, bachelor's in finance. I went right back to get my master's in accounting. So got all that done in total of 4.5 years. Immediately when I was in my master's program, started doing tax returns. So I know how the whole Liberty tax, those types of businesses work and how they think. So there's that. Then, of course, when I finished my master's, right before I finished, I started working for a CPA firm, which was a big catalyst to how we ended up here today. So they were a family ran business. There was two owners. One, his daughter and his sister-in-law worked there. And of course, he knew the other partner because they used to work at another CPA firm before they started that one. So shout out to Valenti Rackley and Associates in Valdosta, Georgia. Those my peeps right there. Kindest people ever. But those 2 years laid such a great foundation for me and what we do, because we took a lot of those concepts, of course, modernized them a little bit, because so I graduated in the fall of 2011. So you can see this has been a while. And a lot of people are like, oh, you look so young. And I'm like, well, I am, but I'm not. I'm 33. So worked there for 2 years. Me and my wife got married. We knew each other from, we went to the same church in high school. So we just kind of stayed in touch. We just cool. And then one day, I don't know what happened. I was like, man, I talked to her more than I talked to my mom. What is going on? I figured out that I liked her. So there was that. So she came down to Valdosta State on her own. I didn't entice her. We did some everything together. Then got married January of 2014, moved back to Atlanta that summer. Then I moved to private accounting. Private accounting is essentially like the accountant that works at Coca-Cola, for example. So worked at a couple of different companies, kept moving up rapidly. And I was one of those job hoppers that's like, man, I'm not challenged. Next job. So I moved up to where I was eventually the supervisor for the #1 card processing company in the world. I was over the Canadian region. I had about 7 or 8 people that worked under me. And that was a very hectic experience. And actually, since we're talking about faith, you're going to like this. I'm going to tee you up, set that rally for you. So I was only there for 10 months because they did layoffs. And this was really rough for me because from a job perspective, I've only excelled. So when you hear layoff, you're like, clearly you didn't excel. But I found out later that they fired everybody on my level. So on the same day, for the same written reason, at the same time, it was like 3 or 4 of us that got fired. But we didn't know the other people got fired until the day after, once everybody was fired. So I was like, okay, if you laid off this person, that person, in all these different divisions, but same position, that's not necessarily reflective of us. Y'all overhired because they were relocating from Baltimore, Maryland to Atlanta, and they hired like 80 people in 2 months. So anyway, a lot of that stuff that I learned there, of course, we implement today. But the faith part comes in, which you will enjoy, which the Lord has showed me that they were trying to let me go on like month 3. But back then, little naive Cam was like, oh God, but you can turn it around. God, I got faith, that you're going to turn this thing around. God, I'm going to overcome this. Yep, nope, that's not how it works, because I most definitely got let go. So ironically, so that was in August of, I think, like 2017. So my wife at this point is pregnant with the second child, who is due within 30 days of me getting fired, which clearly they didn't care. Not their job to care. So that was a whole thing. A lot of faith there. So that went that way. And my wife told me then, she was like, you should start your own business. But because I was in such a funk and, past triggers and trauma, I'm like, who's going to want to hire me? I just got let go. She's like, what does that have to do with anything? You still know what you're doing. I ain't receive it though, because my confidence my identity was not in Jesus. It was in what you see behind me. So y'all don't get caught up in that. So essentially, I worked this temp job. Guess what happened? Worked the temp job. They gave great reviews. Every time the recruiter called, oh, Cameron's doing great. Then they got me with a technicality. And guess what happened? The day after Christmas, let go again. So now I'm like, Lord, 2 times in the same year, God, I don't understand. Like, God, what is wrong with me? Let my wife tell it I was depressed for like a month. So now we're in 2018, and God's grace and mercy was more than sufficient. I know him to be a provider. because I didn't have a job for 8 months. And somehow bills kept getting paid. I'm not saying it was perfect. Credit card balance got maxed out. They came and repossessed a car like early in the morning one day. So it was not easy, but we still ate, still had a place to live barely. So I was like, God, thank you. So we get to August or July of 2018. And long story short, came up with the idea after trying to help a friend, started getting clients. But back then, I thought $150 a month was a lot of money. So we were signing some people, but there was that. So fast forward to today, which is, so that was 2018. We are now in 2024. Company is way different. We're doing well. We have a team of 3 going on 4. We've been able to almost double every year except for last year. So that's been very fun to learn on the fly. But it's definitely been just a continual reminder of trusting God, having faith, and most importantly, believing in this talents, gifts, and abilities that God has placed in you. Oh, I forgot that part because that's the main thing. So remember when I said for those 8 months I didn't have a job? I was praying like real hard. Like I'm praying. I'm like, God, you said in your word, a man who don't work is a man who don't eat. I'm trying to work so I can eat, but you're not helping me. And up until this point, whenever I went on an interview, it was almost automatic that I'm getting a job. I couldn't get any interviews. And I mean, this is that point where like you've seen people at the EBT line and like I had to go stand in that. I'm standing next to a person who I know is doing drugs. I'm standing next to the lady who's finessing the system. Like I'm gonna not work as many hours so I can make sure I keep it because my son in high school. And on the other week, I'm standing in this line. So I've seen all of that. And I remember one day we were sweeping the floor in April, and this was the line that was the life-changing line. My wife was like, uh-oh. So I'm looking at her like, what does that mean? She's like, the Lord just told me about your job situation. So I'm like, okay, what did he say? I didn't took this plate down. I'm ready. She was like this. I'm like, what you mean? She says, the Lord told me he's blocking you from getting a job. I said, what? I'm like, why would he do that? No. She says, he told me he's blocking you from getting a job because there are some talents, gifts, and abilities that you have on the inside of you that you would otherwise not explore. So he's blocking you from getting a job. But in the meantime, he's going to take care of all your needs. I just dropped the broom. I'm like, what kind of advice is this? This is trash. I'm like, the only gift I knew that I had since high school was the ability to encourage others. But I'm like, God, what I'm going to do? Be a motivational speaker? Don't nobody pay for that. I'm like, no, that's not going to work. And then everything I told you, started the company. I'm encouraging people by helping them to know that their numbers aren't trash. They are okay. We just need to get a game plan. We just need to fix it, get that firm foundation, and we can advise and encourage them on different things to do to help them to make more money. But that's kind of the story of how we got to today. Now married, still same person, 3 kids, 8, 6, and about to be 2. And I think I answered all your questions. So that should be faith, the company, and family.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so. Talk to me about that experience, because I think a lot of us have been through that low time, right? And then getting through. And if you've been I've been self-employed for 25 years. So there's this, this up and down journey, right? That happens. And, one of the things I've been thinking a lot about and dealing with myself is kind of this, provider situation. Like, okay, I've made some bad mistakes and I've done these things. And full disclosure, Cameron and I have talked about, and Cameron's going to actually take over a lot of what we do financially in our business, which I'm super excited about. But I'm still in this place where it's like, am I too far gone? Or have I made too many bad decisions and all that? But I want to tie this into masculinity, right? And our identity as men, right? Like our main thing is we want to be that provider. And when we can't be that provider, like I feel like it just crushes us. And
It does.
you went through that process where you've got 8 months to where your identity as a provider is just gone, really. I mean, but at the same time, you're doing everything you possibly can, right? Like you're standing in that line when you have to stand in that line.
Standing in the line. I mean, and then of course, once you get on, so then I'm like, oh, well, just take out, what is the thing when you out of job, unemployment. So then I'm like, well, I got that. Well, I found out you don't really have that much. It's only what you paid in. So that only lasted like maybe 6 or 7 weeks. And then on top of that, you have to file a report every week saying you've applied to at least 3 jobs. You got to put in like the address and who you talked to and the time. So I was having it, but I wasn't doing 3. I was doing like 10, 12, 20 a week. But there's that. None of them called me back, by the way, with the exception of one. And I actually still have a letter that one sent me that said I was not what they were looking for. So there was that. But to your point, I think God does honor the fact that we want to provide, but I also think that God is much more concerned with developing who we are as people. And sometimes we get so caught up in these things behind me, and we don't get that same energy or perspective and put that into the Lord. Because how can you know He's a provider if He never had to provide for you before? You know, you know it in theory. I know it because I read my word that, oh, God can make a way, but when He does it in a different way than you thought, it's a lot different. It's a lot more real. So, like, me and my wife will talk about it every so often. Like, as great as Kenley is doing right now, I have never forgotten that time frame. I never forgot that we had to eat grits 3 nights in a row because that's all we had. I never forgot about I have $30 and I got to feed a family of 4, and this has to last for the week. I've never forgotten about I only have $5 to put in my gas tank, but I need to go to these 3 networking meetings. I've never forgotten what that feels like. And I feel like that's one of those things that God put there for me to always stay humble. Because, hey, I'm going to elevate you in due season. You will reap if you don't faint. But never forget. And I'm like, Lord, I trust me. I ain't forget. Because when that car got repossessed, when I tell you I was hurt, I was hurt. But what do you do when the car gets repossessed and you like, dang, God, I don't understand. And He was like, it was a burden to you anyway. And I said, oh, I was like, He was like, think about it. Because at that point in time, I didn't have Kenley, of course. So we were paying for it because my wife had went to grad school. She would get an access check and we would just pay for it using that money. Well, she had already graduated. So now you're living above your means, but you're mad at me because yes, I took it. Yes, it may mess up your credit, but you couldn't afford it anyway. So it was really a burden to you. But you're mad at me because I took it. Why? Because of that pride. Because you're more concerned with having to explain what happened to it than me really and truly helping you in that season. But see, we don't like to talk to ourselves about that. I work with the teenagers at our church a lot, high school seniors, by the way. So shout out to the next generation. But I tell them all the time, we get so caught up in trying to put on this Christian face, but God wants us to be real with you have to be self-aware. You got to have a real relationship with God. You're not getting the progress or the help you need because you're not being honest and real within yourself. God already know. He already know you prideful. He already know you have a problem with unforgiveness. He already knows you're bitter. So for you to fool yourself like, oh no, I'm good. Or no, it's not like that. Okay. God, like we can play this game if you want to. Or you can just get the lesson, master it now. So when I take you where I want to take you 3 years from now, we don't have to keep going back on repeat because you've already understood and passed the lesson.
Yeah, I like I like that a lot for sure. And it's cool that you're helping this younger generation because one of the things that we realize is that we don't teach these kids how to do anything, right?
Yeah,
High
we don't
school.
disciple. That's the
Yeah.
problem. We try to tell, but we don't disciple. You have to walk with people. You have to buy that relational currency to be able to speak into their life because otherwise you're just like all the other adults. You're just telling them stuff. They're going to, oh, okay. I can tell my students something. They're going to look at me and be like, oh, okay. And they'll go do it. But why? That's because every single Sunday I show up. Every single Sunday I'm there. They all have my cell phone number. We've gone out and done different things. We met at each other's houses. So there's the relational currency to speak into somebody's life. We can't be people as believers and especially as men that are just always trying to direct and solve. You don't have any relational currency with me for me to even be open enough to allow you. You could be right. You could be saying something that's 100% true. but we don't have that currency to where I can take that and receive it genuinely without feeling judged or misunderstood or whatever the case is. So we got to get back to discipling people and walking with people versus just trying to preach at people.
Mm-hmm. And from a practical standpoint, there's a lot of men obviously that have kids in that age group or younger kids, like your kids are younger. What should we as fathers and men be teaching this generation about finances and like all of the stuff? Because we're in a bad situation. Overall, these kids are getting out of school. They have no idea what to do. Someone made the statement, or you keep seeing it, the fact that we'll give an 18-year-old a $100,000 loan to go to school and we won't give an 18-year-old a $100,000 business loan kind of says everything you need to know about what's going on with our society and all that. So what are we as dads or as men with influence, what are we supposed to be teaching these young people, boys and girls, right? I mean, but if we're talking about men and young men in particular.
I think it goes back to that relational currency. You got to try to make as many moments and memories with your kids as you can, because that will be what buys you the currency of when they go off. They're willing to come back to you and tell you stuff, which is I want an open relationship, right? Mm-hmm. So like one example, we have, of course, our last year seniors are now college freshmen. And of course, on breaks, they'll come back. And we just started our small group season at our church. So his parents are he goes to Alabama. So to all the people that are Alabama fans, yeah, War Eagle. But they were like, well, hey, he's going through a season where, of course, you're a freshman. You're understanding, the world is not like how it was when I grew up because it's all these other options. But his mom was like, hey, but he talks to me. He tells me everything, sometimes more than I want to know. But I shut my mouth and I listen. Why? Because they built that relationship. They made those memories. She's a safe place. So I think sometimes we get so caught up in trying to teach. Like, go make some memories. Like the going to the store or making sure you're going to their games or taking interest in what they do or having that family time, maybe dinner, or like in our house, we do pancakes every Saturday. What are some of these memories and moments you can build so you have that same currency? Because, we can't control what the government does. We can't control these loans and all these other things, but I can control my position in your life by letting you know I'm there, I'm available. I am going to challenge you. I am going to push you. I am going to encourage you, but I'm going to be there for you. Even my 8-year-old daughter knows that. Like I just told her the other day, hey, this kind of effort is not acceptable. We are Williams. We do hard things. We don't give up and run just because something is hard, because she was struggling with, well, my homework is easy, but when I get to the test, oh, Dad, they're just so hard. And I just can't. You can. If you can have a moment. I'm for it. Everybody have a moment, but at some point, the work is still here. We still got to get it done. So we can't forever run. Like, these are the kind of conversations that we need to be having consistently and building them up. Put them in situations where they can fail, but you're there. I'm not gonna jump in. I'm gonna let you fall so you can see I knew what I was talking about. But now they know mom and dad is a safe place. They're somebody that I can, if I fail, they still love me. They're not going to judge me. They're not going to talk down and beat me with their words. Or are you sounding like everyone else in the world? Are you sounding like social media? These are things we have to work on as parents, and also not parenting from a place of trauma. But that's a whole different subject. But like some of those things that you're trying to put on your kids are really just the issues and the traumas that you haven't allowed God to fully heal, and your kid don't struggle with the same way you do. But that's a whole different.
Yeah, trying to put that on top of them is definitely something that, I grew up in a crazy situation. So yeah, my kids, what's funny is my kids, when they were growing up, would, be like, oh, this is, I'm having this situation, and we could work through it and then be like, I don't know, my life is so hard. I can't believe, kind of going down that self-pity, right? And I used to be like, hey, let me tell you about these things that happened when I was 8 years old. And they're like, okay, fine. I'll just go do my homework. leave me alone. So, but I always heard, they talk about being a launching pad. Someone described parenting as being a launching pad, right? Yep. And if back in the day before SpaceX, launching pads were a one-time use. They didn't actually come back. But now if you like, all right, let's use the SpaceX type launching pad where they come back, get refueled, and go out again. And that's kind of what that parenting style can be, to be able to allow them. And in your, almost, I used to call it the entrepreneurial approach to parenting, which is like, as entrepreneurs, we kind of want to fail, right? Or we don't want to fail, but we learn from all those failures. And to be able to take that approach with our kids is super important too.
Agreed. Yeah, and that's what you want, right? I want to provide, like my wife, of course, which most good wives and moms are. I don't want them to hurt themselves. I don't want them to, like our backyard, because we just recently moved here. So our backyard actually has like a bunch of rocks back there and not as much grass. So she's like, well, I don't want them to go out there and play, because what if they fall and hurt themselves? Me? They're going to hurt themselves regardless. So like we're going to deny them the ability to go play and explore because we're much more afraid of them hurting themselves. They're going to fall and scrape a knee. They're going to fall and get a cut. That's going to happen regardless. Let the kids go out there and play, right? Because I want to provide an environment where you get to explore, you get to not listen, but you get your own experience. But the safety is still, guess what? You can run right on back up the steps, come cry, we fix it up, and then you go back and repeat. You want to be that for your kids. You don't want to be nope, I don't want them to get hurt. I don't want them to do it. Well, then your kid's going to get out in the real world and they're going to struggle adjusting because mom and dad always kept me so insulated. I don't know what it's like to fail. I don't know how to bounce back from rejection. I don't know how to fight against people saying negative things against me or about me because you always try to insulate them. Their kids are resilient. I'm not saying they're going to grow up perfect and not going to have to go to therapy or whatever the case, but God is bigger than all of us. So, hey, if you're doing the right thing, they're going to have their own relationship with God. God can heal. He can help them to forgive, just like he did with you. So there's that.
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite of the helicopter parent. I'm like, because it's just like, go outside, go out into the world, fail, ask me questions. I'll be here. And I think it's important to realize, my youngest lives in Atlanta, where you do. She's a paramedic, currently in medical school, but she tends to be resistant. And I actually did an episode with her, which I haven't released yet, but it's coming out soon. But she tends to be resistant to any advice that I give. But then she comes back and asks for advice. I give her the same advice, and then she doesn't take it, and then wonders why things haven't changed. So, like, I want to encourage these parents out there, especially dads, just because you can foresee what the consequences are and can foresee a path doesn't mean that you still don't need to have. Like, we've had the same conversation 100 times. Like, she's like,
One day it'll work though.
One day she'll either make the decision based on her failures, or she'll make the decision taking a little advice, putting her own thing, and then moving on.
Well, that's how it was with my sister. Like, she's about to turn 21 this year. And I used to tell her, like, don't do this or blah, blah, blah. And she'd be like, okay, yes, sir. It never failed. She gonna go do it. And then she gonna come back shocked, like, I had no idea this was gonna happen. I'm like, you don't remember I told you that? But now,
it's easy to be told you so, right? And you really can't.
Yeah, I'm like, but now at 20, going on 21, now she understands, like, and I even asked her, I'm like, have I ever lied to you? She was like, no. She said it with confidence. She was like, no. Right. So she now knows if I'm telling her something, Cam must see something or understand something that I don't quite see. That doesn't guarantee she's going to do it, but the thought is there. And eventually, when she bumped that head enough, or when she put that hand on the stove enough, she figure it out, and then she'll course correct. But my job is to be consistent, to sound the alarm when possible. And then we have to do a great job of learning to release, because just like when we were teenagers or kids or freshmen in college, like, we did what we wanted to do. I knew what my mom said or my parents or whatever the case. But we got to have that experience for ourselves. And eventually they're going to be like, you know what? Hey, when you told me blah, 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 what did you mean? Or what were you thinking? Or when you were in this situation, now you know, okay, they starting to get it. It's taking a while, but they're starting to get it. But I think that just goes back to just releasing it and putting it in God's hands versus, again, trying to control every single, like, God, I've done the best I can do. I planted as many seeds as I could and created as many memories. God, I'm just trusting that you're going to protect them, keep them safe, cover them until they come into the light, into the knowledge of. And that's all we can do, right? So,
Well, and then, actually literally saying, and I said this to my daughter Saturday, we had this conversation. And I said, hey, this is my advice. It's the same advice I've been giving you, but that's not my decision. You have to make the decision that you believe is the best approach. And then maybe my advice comes back and you say, okay, well, there's some validity in that. Maybe they don't, but it's that, that's parenting, right? And it's just whatever influence you have in other people's lives. You have to give them whatever advice, love them through whatever the decisions are going to make, and love them if and when they come back and say, hey, tell me that again. What did you mean by that? Like you just said. So that's important for sure. I want to bring it back around a little bit in terms of like personal finances and that kind of thing. Give me personal and business, right? If I said, hey, I'm trying to run this business, whether it's a $10 million business or a $100,000 or $10,000 just getting started, what are like a couple of things that you would advise me to think about and or to do to kind of, keep me on the path to success or start me on the path to success, or in my case, get back on the path to success, right? Like what are a few things there?
I probably should go by those numbers. So, because each stage is going to have different things. So the person that said 10K a month, you probably can do more than you think, and you're probably overvaluing your time. Because if you're making 10K a month, which of course I've done before, like you got more time. I'm so busy. Until you work in 10, 11-hour days, you're not that busy. So there's that. Surround yourself with the right people, invest now in the right relationships that will come back later on and be fruitful and beneficial. For the person who is making like their first 6-figure year, that's pretty much the 10K person. So we'll skip that. The person who's in that 250 to 500K range, this is a very, very important time in your business. This is when you need to start really being clear on what do I do really well versus the things that I'm not so good at. I try to recommend this book, even though I don't get any benefits from it. 10X is easier than 2X because it really tries to teach you to put the emphasis on what are you great at and everything else allocated to somebody else. So we work with a lot of marketing agencies. So at that point, when you make it 300,000, you don't need to be handling your financials. You don't need to be trying to do your own tax strategy. Go find somebody that you can trust that can handle that for you. Because why? If they take that off of your plate, now you get to do more sales, create more offers, etc. So that would be my thing to those people. Once you start hitting the millions, please get you an accountant, because I have met some, especially this year, that are in that $1 million to $2 million range. They don't have one. And at this point, your problems are compounding. So what could have been maybe a 20K mistake could easily be a 50, 60, 80,000. All because we tried to skip some steps and I'm good at it. And I think I'm okay with it. Like, get the right people on your team, partner with the right people to outsource, get in a group or some type of community that can hold you accountable and open your mind to different possibilities and avenues. And regardless of what stage you're at, please pray, because I've learned through different people, like the way God may be trying to take you, it may be different than the way everybody else does. The way we run our business is not the same as every other accounting firm, because we start our day off with, okay, Lord, what we doing today? Like last week, the Lord told me to do something for a new client, and I was looking like, you sure? To which, of course, he didn't say anything. So by default. But
I love it.
That's just how it goes.
I love it, man. I appreciate you taking the time to kind of educate, inspire us. And how do we find more information about what you guys do, and how do we find you if we want to, if we're in that, getting past six-figure mark? How do we get in touch with you to look at you like I'm doing right now, right? Like I'm really pushing towards doing that, and I appreciate your encouragement and guidance on that too. But how do we find you?
No problem. So you can go to KynLi Consulting, KYNLI Consulting.com. That should have just the basic of like, this is who we are, what we believe in, and this is how we help. I'm super active on Facebook the most. So just first name, last name. You'll see me in the picture with my 2 girls. So that's how you'll know it's me. So just shoot us a DM, and of course we'll reach out. We try to post a lot of free content on socials just to kind of give value, just because. So there's that. You can go to our YouTube channel. So there's plenty of videos there, um, which will be Legacies Journey 2018 on YouTube and on social media. So we try to put a lot of free resources out there. We actually have, if you're an agency, a free ebook for you. Just 7 big things and how to address them from the finance side, whether it's ads, diversification, etc. So we can definitely give you guys a link for that. But KynLi Consulting is probably the easiest. Well, Facebook will be the easiest. KynLiConsulting.com will be number 2.
Awesome. All right, man. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right. Same to you. Thank you for having me.